Today we are gearing up for spring by preparing our tools. What does that mean? Well, if you've been gardening, you probably noticed that after time, your tools may get rusty, they may get kind of dull blades, and we don't want that. We don't want that for a variety of reasons. Number one, because if you get a dull cut on a plant and not a clean cut, that plant is not going to scab over as easily, and then it is more susceptible to disease, and focusing its energy on that versus new growth. So we're going to talk about how I clean and sharpen my tools today for spring. Before we get started, make sure to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more health and homesteading content. Let's get started. I have got a ridiculous amount of pointy pruners. These are just straight up my favorite pruners to use in the garden because you can get such specific little cuts. Gosh, these guys need to get oiled. But you can get really precise cutting in there. And so the pointy pruners are my favorite. And of course, as usual, I'll link everything below. I also have bypass pruners. Bypass pruners I use for anything that's about a pinky or dime size thick. And then I've got some other basic tools that I don't need to sharpen, but I need to clean, like a hand trowel and a weeding tool. We're gonna start with just these. And the only materials I need is a sharpening stone, some coconut oil, and paper towels or a rag. The coconut oil is like a natural version of WD-40, and that's going to help us oil our tools as well as get rid of some rust. But in case you're wondering about rust on your tools is not going to create the actual disease rust in your plants. It's two different types of rust, but we want to keep our tools as clean and functional as possible, so I want to minimize the rust on my tools. Now, the very first step to cleaning your tools is going to be scrubbing them down with soap and water. My go-to dish soap is Sal Suds, non-toxic. We use this in the house, it smells nice, and I use this for all of my gardening supplies as well. And just with a sponge and this, I'm going to scrub everything down. This is an important first step because throughout the season, I am using my pruners to prune away diseased, fungal, bacterial material. And that material can live on your tools. Fungal spores specifically can live for 6 months on surfaces. And so we want to give everything a good scrub first before we go into this next step. I have gone in and scrubbed these guys, so now I'm going to show you the next steps. Before you move forward, you want to thoroughly dry your tools. We want to prevent rust by making sure everything is nice and dry. So I've got a couple of shears here that are ready for the next step. If you want to take an extra measure of cleanliness and sterilizing your tools, I highly recommend a bottle of just straight white distilled vinegar or isopropyl alcohol. I actually keep this with my garden tools to use throughout the season because if I am pruning diseased material in between plants, I will make sure to sterilize my tools by just spraying them with vinegar or alcohol so I don't reinfect or infect any other plants. But it's always important to make sure you thoroughly dry your tools. I'm going to do the same with my bypass pruners. All right, now here's the fun part, or at least I think it's fun, is sharpening. Most all of your pruners are going to have a beveled edge. Let's see if I can show you this beveled edge on one side. There it is, right there. You see that beveled edge? That is what I'm sharpening. I'm going to use my hands to completely keep this nice and open. Probably recommend not doing this with a baby in your hands. But I've done this for years and I have a good grip. So we've got our pruners open nicely and going from inside out, similar to sharpening like a kitchen knife, I'm going to take this stone and I'm going to create friction. I'm going to find where it meets the blade and I'm basically lining up the bevel with this and going out. Now I will feel where there are some rough spots. And I want this to be a completely smooth pass. If I feel any rough spots, I can kind of go in those particular spots like I'm filing a nail. But I'm gonna keep going until it's super, super smooth. Once I feel like it's super smooth, I'm gonna go to the other side and I'm gonna line this up so that way I'm not going at an angle, but just line it up flat to get rid of any debris. Same thing with the other side. Now what I really wanna do is find some really bad ones so you can see the difference. You'll be able to see a dull blade go to a really nice, shiny, smooth looking blade. Flat side, and done. Let's find one that's got a dull blade. You can of course test it, being super careful, by just pressing your thumb or finger against it very safely, gently, and you'll know what is sharp versus what is dull. Let's take some that looks like this. Now the blade itself might be kind of rusted or dark, but you can see where the bevel should be, but you can't see it. So let me just get another up close there. See, the bevel should be right there. We're gonna sharpen that and you're gonna see the difference. Essentially, it's just shaving down some of that metal. Get the one side here. Now you can see it. See that nice line? So we've shaved it down. Bypass pruners are a little bit different. We're going at, it's a little more awkward, the angle, but we do have a bevel right here. You can see it, it's a little dull. And we're going to, I like to kind of prop myself up here on the table as much as possible. We're going inside out. And we're going to try to feel for any little bumps. Kind of get that a little bit smoother there. Inside out. And then flat on here. You can see how nice and pretty that line is. And then with bypass pruners, you have this bottom mouth, like this bottom lip here, that is just a square. And what I want to do for that is prop them up. And I'm just going to run this parallel like this, because what really matters is that the side that touches the blade is not dull. It's nice and clean, and I can feel where there's like buildup here. And I can see the metal being exposed again. I want it to be smooth from inside out. And you can, let's see if you can see that. Almost, you can see how the middle is dark and the side is smooth. The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna oil our tools. And for this, I'm gonna choose some that are super squeaky. They haven't been polished, but for the sake of showing you the squeak removal, we'll use these guys. You can see the rust. You can hear the squeak. And all we're gonna do is just use coconut oil, natural form of DW40. If you really have a rust problem, you're gonna want to let it sit just like this. And that coconut oil is gonna loosen up some of that rust. What I'm really trying to do here is get rid of the squeak. You can even hear it without me polishing it. Squeak is gone. And this might get off some of the rust, but not all of it. A little bit. But if you really want to de-rust your tools, you can just set it on the towel. And with the coconut oil, it's really okay if there is some left over. It doesn't have to be super dry. Coconut oil is also antifungal and antimicrobial. But this is the finishing, polishing touch on the tools. And I like to do this at the beginning of the season because then when I'm busy throughout the season, I don't have to think about it. I don't have to do it. It's all just done. If I have some super funky, dirty pruners, I put them to the side, get some new ones. So much better. And that's getting rid of that squeak matters because the squeak is happening due to resistance. Again, you want as clean of a cut as possible when you're pruning your plants. All right. Now for tools, last but not least, like your trowel and your weeding tool, it is important to wash these too. The only steps necessary here are to scrub with soap, like the dish soap I showed you. You can certainly oil them. It's always a good idea to oil wood. That will keep your wood moisturized, especially wood that is drying out and cracking. So in order for your tools to last long, you want to oil them. So these are the most common tools I will use in the garden, and they are all prepped and ready to go for spring, which is a wonderful feeling. I hope you enjoyed this video about preparing for spring by cleaning and oiling and getting your tools nice and neat. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel for more health and homesteading content.